slide. That has investors worried Argentina could return to policies that include currency and capital controls as opposed to Macri's more market-friendly positions.
Saudi Aramco is reporting first-half results for the first time. The state-owned oil company posted a 12% decline in profit as crude prices fell and costs increased. We get more from Bloomberg's Stuart Wallace.
The earnings numbers are important. They cement the company as the world's most profitable by some measure. But we move on from those pretty quickly because ultimately, this is a company whose production levels are set by OPEC policy and whose royalty and tax levels are set by the government. So it's not your typical big oil.
Saudi Aramco is also continuing its push into Asian oil refinery, announcing an agreement to buy a 20% stake in Reliance Industries. That's a deal valued at $75 billion.
And we could get official word soon on a merger between CBS and Viacom. Sources tell us the boards of both companies worked late into the night to hash out a price for that deal. S&P futures down 11 points. Dow futures down 100. NASDAQ futures down 24. The DAX in Germany up 0.2%, while the CAC in Paris is down 0.1%. The 10-year up 16.30 seconds. The yield 1.68%. 2-year treasuries 1.59%. NYMEX crude oil down 1.25%, down 69 cents, $53.82 a barrel. COMEX gold up 0.4%, up 5.40. 15.1390 an ounce. The euro at 1.1179 against the dollar. The yen 105.22 and the pound at 1.2066 against the dollar. Straight ahead, the latest world and national news. This is Bloomberg.
Thanks, Nathan. 5:33 on Wall Street, and that's time for news from around the world. We say good morning to Bloomberg's Michael Barr.
Thank you very much, John. Flights have been canceled in Hong Kong for the rest of the day after authorities deployed more aggressive tactics during the 10th straight weekend of protests with riot police. One protester explained why their tactics have been escalating.
The peaceful protest from the past 10 years is not working anymore.
Bloomberg's Karen Lee has more from Hong Kong.
It comes after a weekend where we saw unprecedented levels of violence, protesters throwing petrol bombs at police beating protesters in MTR stations, firing tear gas there.
Several people were injured in the protests. New York City's medical examiner says an autopsy has been performed on Jeffrey Epstein, but that more information is needed before a cause of death can be determined. The accused child sex trafficker died of an apparent suicide in his Manhattan jail cell. Meanwhile, a legal plan is taking shape that would allow a part of Epstein's estate to be used to compensate his alleged sexual abuse victims. Bloomberg's Ed Baxter has the story.
While an investigation into the circumstances surrounding Epstein's death continues, operational issues and staffing, the attorney for one of Epstein's victims, Spencer Kuvin, says the reaction to the death is mixed.
There's a certain amount of relief, I think, that's involved in seeing someone like this end his life. And that relief really comes from knowing that no other victims, no other girls will be victimized ever again. But again, there's questions that still won't be answered.
And he says he's formulating a plan that would allow part of the estate to be used to compensate Epstein's alleged sexual abuse victims. In San Francisco, I'm Ed Baxter, Bloomberg Daybreak.
Democratic presidential candidates were at the Iowa State Fair yesterday. Many talked about plans for gun legislation. Senator Bernie Sanders and other presidential contenders also focused their attacks on President Trump.
The function of a president is to bring our people together, not divide us up.
Residents in parts of Newark are being advised to drink bottled water after new tests showed dangerous levels of lead in their tap water. The Environmental Protection Agency says lead filters distributed to homes may not be working properly. Global News, 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, John.
Michael, thank you. Coming up on 5:36 on Wall Street. Time now for the Bloomberg NBC Sports Update. And here's John Stashower.
John, the Mets couldn't get the sweep. Washington up 3-0 early, then snapped a 3-all tie with an Asdrubal Cabrera 2-run hit, 7th inning. Victor Robles a 2-run homer in the 9th. The Nationals won 7-4 to end the Mets' 8-game winning streak. Even with the loss, It was quite a weekend at Citi Field. The epic ninth-inning comeback Friday night, more drama Saturday, and a playoff-like atmosphere for manager Mickey Callaway.
Yeah, it really did. There was a lot of matching up, like you said. The starters are out early, which you see a lot in the playoffs. So it did. It felt like that crowd-wise, and the game kind of developed like that because both starters were out early.
Jacob deGrom, no decision in 5 innings, didn't allow an earned run. Mets off tonight in Atlanta tomorrow. Day-night doubleheader at the stadium today. Yankees and their good friends, the Orioles, who they are 13-2 against. Yanks just split 4 in Toronto. They won 1-0, a gem by Masahiro Tanaka. He worked into the 9th inning for Aaron Boone.
Today it seemed like more slider to me. That was really, really sharp for him. But I thought the fastball really played for him, and I thought he was strong late. Even given the two-strike hit to Drury, it just kind of found a hold. He was able to, for the most part, stay off the barrel all day long.
Aroldis Chapman needed 27 pitches but got the save. The Jets have a new kicker. Chandler Catanzaro missed 2 extra points in the preseason opener, so before the Jets could cut him, he retired. The Jets have signed Taylor Bertolette, who kicked for Salt Lake City in the Alliance of American Football. They may still look for someone else. Meanwhile, a key Jet defender, cornerback Tremaine Johnson, hurt his hamstring in practice yesterday. He's out indefinitely. Postseason golf in Jersey City. Patrick Reed won the Northern Trust. With the Bloomberg NBC Sports Update, I'm John Stashower. John?
All right, John, thanks a lot. 5:38 on Wall Street. The latest edition of Bloomberg Business Week is on newsstands now with the cover on how to fight big tech. Joel Stein wrote the story for Bloomberg Business Week.
As technology has progressed, people really don't worry about their privacy. They say things like, oh, that's just for catching criminals. I'm not a criminal. And they don't really think about, all the different times in your life when you're a vulnerable person and you want your privacy protected.
You could read more about this and other stories in this week's edition of Bloomberg Business Week. Know what matters and why. Visit businessweek.com or pick up a copy of the magazine on newsstands now. And listen to Business Week with Carol Masser and Jason Kelly weekdays at 2 p.m. Wall Street time right here on Bloomberg Radio. And it is now 5:39 on Wall Street. Bloomberg Radio is on the air from San Francisco to New York, London to Hong Kong. Let's check in with our global news team for some of the top stories heard on our 300 affiliate radio stations around the world.
I'm Courtney Donahoe on KTRH in Houston. Driller Sanchez Energy filed for bankruptcy to tackle its ballooning debt.
I'm Gina Cervetti, and on WCCO in Minneapolis, Walmart's earnings this week will show the impact of rising producer costs and looming tariffs.
I'm Tom Busby, and on KMOX in St. Louis, I'm reporting on one Missouri city seeing a big upswing in home prices.
I'm Roger Hearing. On Bloomberg DAB Digital Radio in London, we're reporting on the effect on the UK economy of the government's pledges for big public spending alongside tax cuts in the run-up to Brexit.
I'm Andrew O'Day on 1010 Wins in New York. I'm talking investment manager BlackRock's new controlling stake in brand portfolios, including Sports Illustrated and Elvis.
I'm Ed Corey on KFBK in Sacramento. I'm reporting Uber has instituted a hiring freeze for workers who deal with software and services across the U.S. and Canada.
And those are some of the stories our 2,700 Bloomberg journalists and analysts are working on this morning around the world. Coming up this week, we get more corporate earnings, but the calendar gets a bit lighter. With details, here's Bloomberg's Charlie Pellet.
We'll be hearing from several big retailers this week amid concerns about the U.S.-China trade war and its effect on corporate profits. Phil Blancato is Chief Executive Officer at Ladenburg Thalmann.
We haven't had strong earnings. Think about it. We're up over 20% at one point, and you're flat earnings on the first quarter, up modestly in the second quarter. So it's very easy to mark the market off its top when you don't have strong earnings to support it.
And among the retailers reporting this week, Walmart, Macy's, Dillard's, and JCPenney will also be hearing from Cisco Systems and NVIDIA. In New York, Charlie Pellet, Bloomberg Daybreak.
All right, thanks, Charlie. Ahead of the cash open on Wall Street. Dow futures right now, 99 points lower. That's down 0.4%. The S&P futures, 11 points lower. That's down 0.4. And the NASDAQ E-mini futures right now down 27 points. That's down 0.3%. Volatility on the rise. The VIX this morning is up about 7%. The yen getting a bid this morning at 105.22. That is up 0.5% against the greenback. You're listening to Bloomberg.
25 years ago, NJIT graduate Dick Sweeney co-founded Keurig Green Mountain, a company whose incredible innovations changed the way the world brews a cup of coffee. Today, he lectures widely on business leadership and is a strong advocate for NJIT's work to combine business education with the power of STEM.
NJIT is definitely fostering the innovative thinking for budding entrepreneurs simply because that's the world we live in. NJIT is producing students that have been trained, educated, and given the business acumen to be a contributor to a company. The distinct mission is to develop great STEM scholars. The attributes I've always looked for in team members are heart, smarts, guts, and luck. So we want people with passion, intelligence, courage, and never discount luck. The student coming out of NJIT has experienced all of that.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at storiesofinnovation.njit.edu.
Why is delivering the best client experience a top priority at BNY Mellon's Pershing? Michelle Feinstein, Director of Client Engagement, explains.
Today's investors want a financial relationship that's on demand, customized, and leverages the latest digital technology. At BNY Mellon's Pershing, helping advisory firms and broker-dealers create great experiences for their clients is our priority. Through our integrated wealth experience, we give you a high-touch service, flexible technology choices, and expert insights, so you can deliver a highly personalized experience to your clients at every step, from onboarding to wealth planning, to performance analysis and more. And because we're part of BNY Mellon, you'll benefit from more than 230 years of strength and stability. At Pershing, we're personally invested in your success.
Visit Pershing.com to learn more about Pershing's integrated wealth experience. Pershing LLC and Pershing Advisor Solutions LLC are both members of FINRA and SIPC.
Shake up your summer
and take a trip with Southwestern Railway.
Rain or shine, there's always lots to see.
Like the famous Spinnaker Tower.
London Waterloo to Portsmouth Harbour is just £9 when you book in advance.
Great days stay with you. With over 200 destinations waiting to be explored with us, book now at southwesternrailway.com. Terms and conditions apply. Off-peak journeys only.
Summer is in full bloom at RHS Garden Wisley, which makes it the ideal time to visit. And you're less than 25 miles away. So come and join us for a wonderful day out where you can shop, get expert gardening advice, or simply enjoy the stunning surroundings. And be sure to visit us throughout summer for lots of fun with the very hungry caterpillar. To find out more, visit rhs.org.uk. RHS Garden Wisley. Inspiration, advice, fun.
Are you ready to go where the summer feeling grows? Get into the spirit at Ealing Broadway. Discover the latest fashion with over 70 stores, including River Island, H&M, Primark, JD, Monsoon, and many more. And then join us from the 27th of July for a really wild summer. Enjoy sport on the big screen, get lost in the summer maze, or join in our free interactive storytelling and crafty workshops. Visit Ealing Broadway, where the summer feeling grows. Open until 7 p.m. weekdays. See website for details.
This is a plug. A plug for the future. Inviting you to join the forward-thinking riders, skaters, and drivers who choose electricity to get around. Charging their bikes, boards, and cars using power from EDF Energy, the UK's largest producer of low-carbon electricity. So, do you like the sound of the electric future? Come and join us. Generation Electric. Everyone's welcome. EDF Energy.
If your old faithful fridge freezer is broken or on the blink again, relax. At AO, we have a huge range jam-packed with the latest technology to keep your weekly favourites fresher than ever. Plus, there's great deals on top brands like Haier, Bosch and Beko with finance options available. AO.com, the online electrical store. AO, let's go! Credit is subject to status, must be over 18. AO Retail Limited is a broker and not a lender. Credit is provided by Secure Trust Bank PLC, trading as V12 Retail Finance.
Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok on Twitter. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in over 120 countries. This is Bloomberg Radio. Now, a global news update.
A legal plan is taking shape that would allow a part of the late Jeffrey Epstein's estate to be used to compensate his alleged sexual abuse victims. Spencer Kuvin represents one of Epstein's alleged victims and says his client had conflicting feelings over the financier's death.
There's a certain amount of relief, I think, that's involved in seeing someone like this end his life. And that relief really comes from knowing that no other victims, no other girls will be victimized ever again.
Authorities in Erie, PA say a daycare center where children stayed overnight as their parents worked has been ravaged by fire that killed 5 and sent the owner to the hospital. Sunday's victims ranged from 8 months to 7 years. Gasoline prices at the pump.
The overall national price of regular grade gasoline is $2.74, 18 cents under what it was a year ago.
There's industry analyst Trilby Lundberg of the Lundberg Survey. I'm John Trout.
Bloomberg Markets.
I'm Lisa Abramowitz. Join me for a conversation with the Chief Investment Strategist at John Hancock Investment Management, plus a conversation with Peter Cheer of Academy Securities. Today at 10 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
I'm Nathan Hager. Mounting unrest in Hong Kong is weighing on investor sentiment. European stocks and U.S. equity futures have reversed gains this morning. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures are down 12 points now. Dow futures down 110. NASDAQ futures down 29.5. The DAX in Germany up 0.1%, while the CAC in Paris and the FTSE in London are down 0.2%. 10-year up 16.30 seconds. The yield 1.68, close to 1.69%. 2-year Treasury yield 1.59%. NYMEX crude oil down 1.2%, down 68 cents, $53.81 a barrel. COMEX gold up 0.4%, up $5.70, 15.1420 an ounce. The euro 1.1178 against the dollar, and the yen at 105.18. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Now here's Michael Barr with more on what's going on around the world. Michael.
Thank you very much, Nathan. Police are getting tougher as protests in Hong Kong entered its 10th straight weekend. Police fired tear gas inside train stations. Meanwhile, Hong Kong airport authorities canceled flights for the rest of the day after demonstrators entered the main terminal building today. Bill Cosby's lawyers will be in court today. Lawyers for the 82-year-old comedian will fight to overturn his sexual assault conviction. In baseball, the Yankees won. The Mets ended their 8-game winning streak after a 7-4 loss to the Nationals. The Red Sox lost. The Orioles won in a dramatic 9th-inning walk-off home run over the Astros. The A's and Giants won. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg. Bloomberg Opinion, informed perspectives, and expert data-driven commentary on breaking news.
And it's 5:49 on Wall Street. Time to check in with Bloomberg Opinion. Demand for oil getting gloomy. Joining us now on the phone, Bloomberg Opinion columnist and oil strategist Julian Lee in London. Julian, nice to talk to you. We get forecasts all the time about oil, and specifically we're talking about demand growth here. How far off the mark are these forecasts that we've been getting?
Well, I think the real problem is that, we started off the year with some fairly robust forecasts of demand growth around 1.5 million barrels a day. And if you look at the overall annual figures, those have come down a little bit. But what's really worrying is that as we start getting real data for each quarter, those quarterly assessments get slashed. So in May, for example, when we got the first real numbers coming in for the first quarter, we started getting some very big downward revisions to first quarter demand growth. They're now around 500,000 barrels a day, down from 1.2, 1.3. Then in July, when we started getting second quarter figures, we're starting to see that those have now been slashed, and demand growth of more than 1.5 million barrels a day initially for the second quarter is again now down at 500,000 barrels a day. Now we're starting to see third quarter demand estimates also being cut very heavily. Both the International Energy Agency and the U.S. Department of Energy, those are now down at about 1 million barrels a day from 1.5 million barrels a day a month ago. And it's only the fourth quarter that is left that is really propping up this year, and I think that may go too.
What's behind this?
I think what's behind it is a combination of partly a cyclical factor that we are entering a sort of slower period of the economic cycle globally. But then on top of that, you've got this ongoing trade war between the United States and China that really seems no sign of getting resolved. Every time that there looks to be progress, we suddenly take two steps backwards. More tariffs are announced, more reciprocal measures are announced by China, and the whole thing seems to get worse rather than better, and it needs to move in the other direction.
What does this mean for the industry?
I think what this means is that we've already seen oil prices come off a lot. We had a bit of a bounce on Friday, but that was very much in response to a Saudi announcement that it would cut exports, although I think that interpretations of that announcement may be a little more generous than is actually warranted. What it means, I think, is that at least over the next 3 to 4 quarters, the industry is going to be struggling with oil prices that are reluctant to rise, despite the big production outages that we've seen from sanctions. This is going to need, I think, more action on the part of producers if they want to try and balance the market. But it's very unclear to me how far Saudi Arabia will go on its own and how easily it will bring others along with it.
Just real quick, is this beyond the pale for Saudi Arabia to control this?
I think it's too difficult for them to do it on their own. They would be back where they were in the 1980s when they saw their production go from 10.5 million barrels a day to 2.5. They don't want to be in that position again.
Julian, a pleasure. We appreciate it. Bloomberg opinion columnist and oil strategist Julian Lee joining us from London. Real quick, check of prices right now. NYMEX crude down 78 cents a barrel, 53.51. And Brent, the international benchmark, down 51 cents at 58.04. You can read more on these other stories from Bloomberg Opinion at Bloomberg.com/opinion and on the terminal by typing OPIN. Go. Nathan.
All right, John, thanks. 5:53 on Wall Street. Time for the Bloomberg Law Report, brought to you by American Arbitration Association. International trade or business dispute resolved faster with the International Center for Dispute Resolution, the leader in alternative dispute resolution around the world, ICDR.org. Now let's get to the legal stories we're watching this morning with Tom Busby in the Bloomberg 99.1 Washington newsroom.
The trade group representing the airline industry, the Air Transport Association, is joining American Airlines in asking a federal appeals court to decide whether the company must pay short-term leave benefits to pilots who serve in the military. U.S. Department of Agriculture workers affected by the upcoming relocation to the Midwest will receive a month's salary and extended telework options as part of a deal struck between the agency and the employees' union. And states could have a harder time blocking interstate pipeline projects under an EPA proposal to rewrite its rules on water pollution and federalism.
Bloomberg Law. Everything you need, all on one legal research platform, including guidance, analysis, and Bloomberg Market Intelligence. Find out more at BloombergLaw.com.
All right, Tom, thanks. Now another legal story we're watching. Facebook failing to undo a ruling that allows millions of users to band together in a lawsuit that accuses the social network of gathering and storing biometric data without consent. For more on this development, Bloomberg's June Grasso speaks to Santa Clara University School of Law professor Eric Goldman.
Facebook is exposed to these huge penalties in this suit because of the Illinois Privacy Act, and I suppose that's why Illinois residents brought it.
Yeah, right. The law shouldn't apply to any other resident, so it's a Illinois-specific law. And, of course, that raises some interesting questions about how Facebook could deal with one specific state statutes when it's appealing to people across the globe. I will add that since Illinois enacted the law, a few other states have enacted similar laws, although they're not identical. So there could be other claims in the future by residents of other states.
Explain what this law specifically requires.
Well, the law is basically trying to prevent anyone, including Facebook, but not exclusively Facebook, from using biometric information. So there's a bunch of different ways in which we are uniquely identifiable as people based on our body. That includes things like our face, but there's some other traits that we have that can be, through machine learning and computer algorithms, uniquely identifying individual people. So the law tries to prevent all of that and say anyone who wants to gather and use biometric information needs to obtain consent from the person who's going to be recorded in the database.
Other than procedural defenses, what is Facebook's defense to the merits of the case?
I don't know that there's a lot of great defenses. I think that Facebook actually did the behavior that the statute tried to regulate, but that's not the end of the inquiry. So, as I mentioned, one of the things that I'm struggling with is how Facebook could uniquely determine that someone's an Illinois resident governed by this law versus a California resident not governed by this law. The only way they might know that is by actually figuring out who that person is, and the biometrics would have been necessary to do that. So there's a kind of feedback loop here. How does Facebook know it's dealing with Illinois residents if it doesn't actually uniquely identify them using biometrics? But if it does uniquely identify them using biometric, then they've broken the law.
That was Santa Clara University School of Law professor Eric Goldman speaking with Bloomberg's June Grosso. And you can listen to more legal analysis like this on Bloomberg Politics, Policy, Power, and Law, weekdays at noon, Wall Street time, here on Bloomberg Radio. Find more legal news at BloombergLaw.com. Attorneys will find exceptional legal research and business development tools there as well. Visit BloombergLaw.com for more information. Risk off to start the week. S&P futures down 14 points. Dow futures down 127. NASDAQ futures down 35 points. DAX in Germany, little change to lower. The CAC in Paris down 0.25%. The 10-year up 16/32. The yield 1.68%. Two-year Treasury yield 1.59%. NYMEX crude oil down 1.2%, down 64 cents, $53.86 a barrel. COMEX gold up 0.5%, up $7.80, $15.1620 an ounce. The euro 1.1184 against the dollar. And Bloomberg Daybreak continues. This is Bloomberg.
This is a plug. A plug for the future. Inviting you to join the forward-thinking riders, skaters, and drivers who choose electricity to get around. Charging their bikes, boards, and cars using power from EDF Energy, the UK's largest producer of low-carbon electricity. So, do you like the sound of the electric future? Come and join us. Generation Electric. Everyone's welcome. EDF Energy.
The sun gently fell below the horizon. Rays of pure gold filled the sky, illuminating the towering structures of the London skyline. What else could Jane do but gaze in awe? She was but a silhouette upon a hill, wrapped up in a spectacle so perfect, no words, oil paintings, or smartphone filters could do it justice. She savoured it. Before hopping back on her bike and riding off, she had to finish her commute home. Walk, cycle, discover. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Imagine the thing your kid loves doing the most. What do you see? Racing cars, singing hits? Now imagine them doing their dream version of it for real. Burning some rubber at a racetrack or singing in a massive gig. Whatever your kid is into, and we mean whatever, they could win their dream version of it with Robinson's Fruit Shoot. Pick up a pack of Fruit Shoot for their chance to win. Eligible for 4 to 12-year-olds. Entrance 18+. Ends 30th of September. Full terms and Northern Ireland entry at fruitshootforthemoon.co.uk.
Capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg Radio.
Live from the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studios, this is Bloomberg Daybreak for Monday, August 12th, 2019. Coming up this hour.
Bonds in Argentina tumble after a landslide election loss for President Macri.
China holds off on stimulus as the trade war risks turning into a currency war.
Italian stocks and bonds gain as Matteo Salvini begins a push for new elections.
Flights have been canceled in Hong Kong after another weekend of violent protests. Plus, an autopsy has been performed on financier Jeffrey Epstein. I'm Michael Barr. More ahead.
I'm John Stashower in sports. The Mets' 8-game winning streak came to an end with a loss to Washington. Yankees a 1-0 win at Toronto.
That's all straight ahead on Bloomberg Daybreak. On Bloomberg 1130 New York, Bloomberg 99.1 Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 106.1 Boston, Bloomberg 960 San Francisco, Sirius XM 119, and around the world on BloombergRadio.com and via the Bloomberg Business app.
And good morning. I'm John Tucker.
I'm Nathan Hager. U.S. futures and global stocks are heading lower as we begin a new week. It's coming up to 6:01 on Wall Street, and we check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures down 14 points, almost 0.5%. Dow futures down 126. NASDAQ futures down 36 points. The DAX in Germany, little change to higher, while the CAC in Paris is down 0.3%. The FTSE in London down 0.25%. The Nikkei in Japan was closed for the day. The Hang Seng in Hong Kong closed down 0.4%. The 10-year is up 16/30 seconds. The yield 1.68%. 2-year Treasuries 1.59%. West Texas Intermediate crude oil is down 1.2%, down 66 cents, $53.84 a barrel. COMEX gold up 0.5%, up $7.40 at $15.80 an ounce. The euro 1.1184 against the dollar, and the yen 105.18. John.
Yeah, Nathan, let's begin with the latest on the trade war. Chinese authorities are holding back from major stimulus, keeping options open as the impasse risks turning into a currency war. For the third straight day, Beijing said its daily fixing for the yuan stronger than estimates. At the same time, the International Monetary Fund is calling on China to keep its exchange rate flexible. More from Bloomberg's Tom McKenzie in Beijing.
The IMF report seems to support the Chinese position, and it's been played up very heavily in state media here over the last few days. So that's the Chinese stance on it. The IMF have come out with a report that they see as broadly supportive. What we saw in terms of the fixing, which is a slightly stronger fixing than the markets had expected today, building the case that China's looking to kind of gradually depreciate the currency. No big shocks, because of course they don't want to see capital flight, and they don't want to see any broader risks to the financial markets.
This all comes after President Trump said trade talks with China planned for September could be called off, and that he's, quote, not ready to make a deal.
Now, stocks in China are higher while the yen is stronger as investors start the week on a cautious note. Bloomberg's Juliet Sally joins us from Singapore with more on the trading day in Asia. Good morning, Juliet.
Good morning, Nathan. The yuan edged higher along with equities on the Chinese mainland as the PBOC set the currency's reference rate weaker for an 8th session. Stocks in Hong Kong fluctuated and Cathay Pacific shares fell the most in 3 years to a decade low as protests in the city entered a 10th week. Australian stocks fell along with iron ore futures, with mining players and gold stocks under pressure. And the Kiwi paired earlier gains as the country's Treasury Department identified New Zealand could weather negative interest rates to the tune of minus 0.35% in a crisis. In Singapore, I'm Juliet Sally, Bloomberg Daybreak.
Juliet, thanks. It could be a rough day for traders in Argentina. The country's Eurobonds are tumbling after President Mauricio Macri lost a key primary vote in a landslide. Let's get more from Bloomberg's Justin Carrigan.
The opposition candidate Alberto Fernandez has completely taken the pollsters and potentially the markets by surprise by winning a much greater than expected margin in this primary election, such that if this were reflected in the October 27 election, then he would automatically become president and there would be no need for a runoff.
That decisive victory has investors worried Argentina could return to policies that include currency and capital controls, as opposed to Macri's more market-friendly positions. Bloomberg's Garfield Reynolds has details.
There was an expectation that Macri would do significantly better, not that he would win the primary, but that he would do well enough to be in a position to challenge strongly at the October election. That's been completely blown away, and so we're seeing concern about what will happen once Argentinian assets start trading. We have some commentators out there who are saying once the Argentinian peso begins trading, it could drop as much as 25%.
And the peso begins trading in the U.S. session after finishing last week at 45.31 per dollar.
Now, bonds in Italy are gaining after Deputy Prime Minister Matteo Salvini pulled the plug on the coalition government and called for a swift election. And now he's on the campaign trail in southern Italy. Bloomberg's Maria Taddeo is there.
Salvini is in full campaign mode. He wants to present himself as a man of the people. Of course, he wants this election to take place quickly. I spoke to him at the beach. He told me hopefully we get an election in October. And then he also said investors have nothing to worry from a Salvini government. There is no secret plan to leave the euro. We are not going to leave the euro.
An exit from Europe or the euro is out of the question and not being discussed. What we are discussing about, find wrong, and want to change are rules on immigration and taxes. There is absolutely no plan to exit Europe or the euro.
Matteo Salvini doubled down on this idea that he wants to cut taxes for everyone, get tough on migration, no leaving the euro, however. And it's interesting, he's decided to come here to the south of Italy because this is an area where the Northern League, as it was formerly known, would not do well in the elections. But of course, Salvini is looking to change that and actually get more votes. He is polling right now at 40%.
Bloomberg's Maria Tadeo reports Salvini will spend the rest of the month stumping for votes, and the prospect of fresh elections in Italy is weighing on the euro. It's currently down a 10th% against the dollar at 1.1186.
On the corporate front, Saudi Aramco is reporting first-half results for the first time. The state-owned oil company posted a 12% decline in profit as crude prices fell and costs increased. Aramco is also continuing its push into Asian oil refining, announcing an agreement to buy a 20% stake in Reliance Industries. That's a deal valued at $75 billion.
And here in the U.S., we could soon get official word on a merger between CBS and Viacom. Sources tell us the boards of both companies worked late into the night to hash out a price for that deal. CBS and Viacom aim to announce the tie-up today, though the timing could slip to tomorrow. Futures pointing lower ahead of the open on Wall Street. Straight ahead, the latest world and national news. This is Bloomberg.
And it's now 6:07 on Wall Street. Let's get news from around the world. We say good morning to Bloomberg's Michael Barr.
Thank you very much, John. Flights have been canceled in Hong Kong for the rest of the day. It comes as police are increasingly clashing with demonstrators after the 10th straight weekend of anti-government protests. Bloomberg's Karen Lee is in Hong Kong.
Violent scenes erupted across Hong Kong as authorities used more aggressive tactics on protesters during the movement's 10th weekend. Riot police were videotaped beating demonstrators and deploying tear gas in subway stations, while other officers went undercover to infiltrate crowds and make arrests. The unrest is impacting the economy and daily life in one of the world's most densely crowded cities. Karen Lee, Bloomberg Daybreak.
Officials have performed an autopsy on Jeffrey Epstein, who was accused of sexually abusing underage girls. However, the details on how Epstein died in jail have yet to be released. Epstein was found unresponsive in his Manhattan jail cell after an apparent suicide attempt. Epstein's death cut short a criminal prosecution that could have pulled back the curtain on the inner workings of the financier. Bruce Barkett, an attorney for Epstein's former cellmate, tells ABC this was negligence by the correction system.
What the guards do and what they're supposed to do are almost always two different things. So one has to wonder how it is that this man who just tried to take his own life by hanging himself a few weeks ago was in a position to successfully hang himself.
Prosecutors say they will continue to investigate. Pennsylvania authorities say a daycare center where children could stay overnight as their parents worked was ravaged by a fire that killed 5 and sent the owner to the hospital in Erie. Some residents in Newark are being told to drink bottled water after dangerous levels of lead were found in some neighborhoods. The Environmental Protection Agency says people in homes with old lead pipes should avoid tap water. Newark Mayor Raz Bracara says tests on at least 2 of the water filters distributed to homes show they did not work.
The results of this test leaves us with many questions, and we must expand our testing to understand what is happening with these 2 specific filters.
Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, John.
Michael, thank you. Coming up on 610 on Wall Street, it's time now for the Bloomberg NBC Sports Update. And here's John Stashower.
John, the Mets won 7 in a row, couldn't get the win streak to 8, and then they won 8 in a row, couldn't make it 9. A fielding miscue on what would have been the final out of the first inning, plated 3 Washington runs. Mets rallied to tie, but the ex-Met, as Drupal Cabrera, untied it with a 2-run hit in the 7th inning. Victor Robles later a 2-run homer off the still struggling